Hey there, my name is Nenad and I'm coming from a small pre-sales agency called Simply Grow. And in this context, I have the pleasure to share a little bit of knowledge and know-how how we can connect our cold emailing platforms with our favorite LinkedIn automation platform, HeyReach. In this context, I'm going to use Smartlead as an example of a platform, but all the concepts are the same. We're going to use Make as our connecting platform or intermediary platform. And we're going to discuss two basic scenarios when we're sending data from Smartlead to HeyReach and the other way around. And we're going to mention some technical aspects like webhooks, APIs, and similar HTTP requests, etc. And we will explain them conceptually, and we should never let those technical abbreviations scare us or confuse us, because principles behind them are super simple, and we're going to show that. The minimum that we need to understand what is actually happening. So without any further ado, let's start talking about our first scenario. In our usual email campaigns, it happens that some leads bounce. It's inevitable, in my opinion, because maybe we're using catch-all email addresses which might not exist, or maybe those are valid email addresses, but receiving email server from a company that we're reaching to is so strict with firewalls, anti-spam software, cybersecurity software, that our emails never pass those barriers and never reach people that we intended to reach. So if you're like me and you want to squeeze all the juice from our lead lists, and if you're doing maybe account-based approach where every single lead counts, or for whatever reason, you might want to contact those people on LinkedIn. If they bounce, let's move them to HeyReach. And this is the scenario that we're gonna explore and set up the automation for. So the first things first, and we need to connect to create a connection between Smartlead and Make. Why Make? Why do we actually need Make? Because in this context, there is no quote-unquote native integration between Smartlead and HeyReach. You might notice that usually platforms create those direct integrations with platforms like HubSpot and similar most popular ones, or Zapier. In my opinion, humble opinion, Make gives you so much more than Zapier, and it's more robust, has more features, and it's much more price friendly. And because of that, because we don't have this native integration between Smartlead and HeyReach, we need a glue in between, quote unquote, of course, to create an intermediary platform data tunnel or channel through which data will pass. So first things first, we need to do this to establish this connection. And for that, let's go to Smartlead. This is one of my test accounts, and for us to start, we need to use something called a webhook. And the webhook concept is actually a really, really simple one. Webhooks are simple mechanisms that are event-based, event-triggered, which means whenever something happens, an event that we define, the platform where we're defining the webhook on is going to send some data to a specified URL. Basically, that's it. Whenever something happens, event of our interest, send some information to a defined URL. In Smartlead, we need to go to our settings and go to this webhook section. I have one webhook defined already, but if you haven't defined any webhooks in the past, this list will be empty, so don't get confused by that. We just need to go and click here, add a webhook. Now, these options are specific for Smartlead, most of them. I'm mentioning this because if you're using different platform like Instantly or some other cold emailing platform, you might see different options or different order of options. Key options are webhook name, webhook URL, and that should be unified and same across all platforms. The rest is specific for Smartlead. And let's analyze these options a little bit. So for Smartlead, we can have this association type on a level of one campaign, so it will observe only defined campaign or a client or account level. I'm gonna stick with account level for this exercise, and we need to define event type, one or more. I'm gonna use email bounce, and we need to give it a name, some name that should be descriptive for us in the future to know what is it all about. Let's say this is maybe a little bit more too descriptive, but regardless. And webhook URL. Where do we get this URL? So we need to go, because we're connecting Smartlead and Make, we need to go to our Make. And in this section, we see all of our scenarios, but I'm gonna start from scratch, from fresh scenario. Click here, and we are presented with a blank canvas with the first module that should be defined, because all scenarios start with a module, and Make is telling us, hey, let me know, what do you want as a first module? So we need webhooks. I can see it there, I can see it there. If you don't see it anywhere, we can just go and say webhooks, and we have 3 options. We will ignore 2 and just stick with custom webhook. Now, Make is always giving us these red notifications with a number of things that we need to address for a module. So we need to create a webhook, and we can say Smartlead bounces, and that's basically it. We can play around with advanced settings, but in this scenario we don't have to do that, and we can just go ahead and save. And here is the URL that we can use, and just click here, copy address to clipboard, then go back to our Smartlead and just go here. And the beautiful thing that many software platforms do is to have this option to send test data to webhooks, so we can test right away, so we don't have to create a test campaign. We should do that as a last step of testing, but while we're setting up the integration, it's really cool when we can do it. So we see this spinner here, and Make is awaiting some data, so we can just map out the structure of data that is sending. Also, one thing that we can do this, send test data, and we should see here successfully determined. So the structure of the data that is coming from Smartlead is determined by Make. Also, one thing that we'll need very soon is documentation about these data structures and the data that is actually Smartlead sending. So we can easily click here. It's super convenient that they've put this here, and we can read through it, and just to save some time, I'm gonna click here. So this is a Notion page that describes every single event that we can monitor for webhooks. I'm interested in email bounce. Now we can see this colorful code-like thing, and this is just a data structure in JSON format. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation Format, and you don't have to memorize that. The only thing that is useful to know about JSON is universal. It is universal data format used by many systems, many platforms. It's platform agnostic, so literally every software today knows how to parse, interpret this JSON format, and it's super simple, so it allows us to pass information and data between platforms. This is just a documented things that some fields or properties or key value pairs, however you want to call them, are deprecated, removed, some were added, etc., etc. So everything revolves around these keys on the left side of column, and on the right side is value, or you can call it property, and we have curly brackets in some places, which means this is a group that describes this in more detail. For example, all of these fields are actually explaining, giving more context about the message that is being sent, like message ID, HTML, text, time, etc., etc. And that's enough for us to proceed and to continue. So we'll keep these things open, because if we check this and we go to save and we just activate this and say immediately whenever we have some information coming in, and we can do this, and we can repeat the same process, send test to webhook, and we will just save this and add the webhook, And we can see here the structure of information and which information we actually received from Smartlead. Now, we have a lot of properties here, and if we compare it to this documentation, we'll see it's basically the same. All the properties with some test dummy values like test@getsmartlead.com, support test, etc., etc., etc. So this is working fine. That's perfect. Now let's return to our schematics. So we've managed to do this. Now we need to cherry pick data that we received from Smartlead and to pass it to HeyReach. How are we going to do that? Well, going back to make, we'll just move this module a little bit, right click, add a module. Now, if we want to add a module, we can check if there is a built-in or already pre-made module for HeyReach, and we can just try it by typing. And there is one, but this module was not created by people behind HeyReach, but someone like from community, some third-party users of Make created this module, and it's actually paid module, which is fine, whoever wants to pay for it. In this scenario, we're not going to use that one. We're going to use a generic HTTP module. If we take a look, we are going to pick one, and we can use make a request module. Now, when it comes to HTTP, requests and responses are behind everything on the web as we know it. Without those requests and responses, we wouldn't have web as we know it. Our browsers are making those requests all the time, requesting from some distant servers assets like HTML, scripts, images, fonts, and everything else. So they exchange information all the time. And this is something that we're gonna do explicitly. Now, in order for us to work further on our scenario, we need to connect it. So we can do this, just bring it a little bit closer, and make automatically creates a connection. Now, this is something that we need to configure. For us to do this, we need to take a look at HeyReach's API documentation. Okay, so what's an API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. In short, that's just an interface that we can use to interact with a system. Compare it maybe with a car. I don't have to know all ins and outs and inner workings of a car in order for me to drive it. I don't have to pull some strings or levers behind the hood in order to start the car or whatever. I can use the interface I was given by car manufacturer in a form of steering wheel, pedals, shift gears, and everything else. And so basically I can use the interface and manipulate the car and use the car. In the same way, people behind HeyReach created an API, so the interface that we can use to programmatically interact with HeyReach. That's all there is to it. So what we need to do is to go here, go to integrations, and then we can just check here HeyReach API and click here get API key. So when it comes to API keys, those are unique and we shouldn't share those with other people, because if we give them that, they can access our account programmatically through code or this kind of infrastructure or integration and do maybe potential malicious things. So I'm sharing this because I'm gonna request a new key later on. So I'm gonna copy this, and we are going to need this, and also we need this documentation. So I'm gonna click here. So please don't be scared when you see these code examples. On the right side, this will make sense a lot as we go. So on the left side we have navigation, and so we need to see of all API URLs that we can contact and reach out to, which one we actually need. Now, for this to work, we actually have to understand how HeyReach works. So for us to have a campaign, we need to have a list that is tied to a campaign, and all leads belong to a list. So we can go to see public list subsection, and for example, check this add leads to list, because as again, lists leads need to belong to a list. So we can check out this URL and see how everything works. This is an explanation that should provide us with more information, understanding. This is a code sample, etc. So let's see how we can use this in our scenario to create a request. Let's copy this URL, go back and paste it here. As you can see, as soon as I focused this input field, I got this option to place some of these placeholder dynamic values pre-populate, but we don't need this, but make is by default giving us this option. So this is the URL that we want to contact, and now we need to pay attention to this post. This is a method. Usual methods are get, post, put, patch, delete. Get, as the name says, we're requesting some information. Now, because we're passing some information, similar like we're creating an account on a website or filling out a contact form, that information in the form needs to be sent to a server. That's why it's gonna use post. So in headers, this is like sending an envelope or a package. We need to state certain things, maybe a stamp, our stamp, so prove that we're actually the ones that are behind the package or those kind of things. So we need to consult our documentation and see which fields we need to include in the headers section. So we need this API key thing. So this is the name. The value is going to be the key itself, and we will put it here. Another property or key value pair is content type. So we are going to say application JSON, and also we can go this is just telling the server, the API server, which format of data are we sending and expecting back. So this is it. And body type, we can also say raw. Content type is application JSON, even though we already stated here. And this is it. And so we also can say parse response. Sure, we want to parse response because we want to have less steps to do further. So this is okay. Request content. Now we need to go and see this example. So this is again JSON format. We are defining a list of leads. These square brackets are actually a way for us to define an array. It's a ordered set of information, and these curly brackets are actually representing one person, one lead, with all the information: first name, last name, location, etc., etc. So let us copy all this and let's paste it here. So it might look a little bit messy because we're pasting this text here, and we need to pay attention about formatting. And in order for us to test this, we can use this information here as a first line of testing. And something that we need to pay attention to is this list ID. If we go into HeyReach and go to leads, we'll see our lists. And let's go and have this sample list. This URL, in the URL we have this unique ID. So we need to think about our integrations in the future, maybe connect one campaign to another list, just one specific list, or maybe for every campaign in Smartlead to have one list in HeyReach, or to funnel all the leads in one list inside HeyReach. And with that, we're not adding these fields yet, so we can save, and we can do this. Right click and say run this module only. And it seems everything is fine. Now let's analyze the response. This is input. This is what we gave the API which information, and the output is the response. So based on standardized HTTP responses, status code 200 means everything went well. One of the codes is well known. 404 is when some resource is missing, etc. So 200 is perfect. So we can also check and see like the data, added leads count 1, and we can check it by going to HeyReach to this list and see what is happening. And here it is. This is a sample lead. Of course, this is hard-coded values, and we don't want to do that. So we're going back to our scenario, and we want to replace those hard-coded values with proper values. So first name, let's check, let's see. Oh wait, we don't have first name field. We have full name. Okay, so we have a little issue here, which is not the big deal, but we will realize really soon that we don't have, for example, LinkedIn profile URL in this payload, in this set of data that we're getting from Smartlead. In this case, when we work with bounced leads. So we cannot complete this integration because we need this. This is crucial for HeyReach. So if we think about it, we can maybe do something different. We can unlink this. Let's move it. And we can maybe ask Smartlead for additional information. So bounced connection with make through a webhook. We don't have enough information. Let's ask Smartlead to give us a little bit more info about this lead that bounced, and then pass everything to HeyReach. So let's do it that way. So a module we can do. Let's search for Smartlead. Smartlead. Okay, there are some modules that are built by Smartlead people, official ones, official modules. And let's check. And we can look for a module that allows us to get some more information about the lead. And let's see, fetch lead by email address. We can try that one. Okay, so this is some pre-existing connection with Smartlead that I've created. And we also need to consult their documentation about their API, about their interface for interacting with Smartlead. So let's go back and let's check this profile. Let's, again, don't share this key with anyone. API docs. Let's see what we have. So we need to create, I'm not going to use this connection on purpose. I want to show you how to create it from scratch. Smartlead API connection. We need to fetch this copy, paste it, save. So it's going to connect and everything's fine. So the good thing is at this stage, we don't have to consult documentation probably because everything, all the headers and all the things that we did for HTTP module is already abstracted, it's under the hood, and we can just state the email address. And the email address is toName, this field that we got initially from Smartlead. So we can just state it here as a dynamic field and we can just save it. And we can connect these two. Okay, perfect. So because it's a dynamic field, when we go run this module only, we will have this field to enter some test value. So if we go back and check our leads that we have, and I have some test leads that have false email addresses on purpose, and let's ask Smartlead through the API for more information about this person. Let's imagine this person was in a campaign, bounced, we got some information but not all, and then we want to ask Smartlead to give us more information about this person. Let's see. Okay, everything's fine, we don't have any errors. Output, so this is it. We can check with this: first name, last name, company name, LinkedIn, So everything's fine. Now we have LinkedIn profile. Now we have first name and last name separated and everything else that we might need for this. So let's fix our data for this. So in Make, we can see like all the colors of these fields are the same colors as this module. So we don't need those. We want to work with, so now we have fields from Smartlead module is purple. So these fields are purple. So we can use these dynamic fields. So we can delete this. Please pay attention to these quotation marks, double quotation marks. They're super important because of the JSON format standardization. Without quotation marks, the API would try to digest this information as literal information, which will throw errors. This way, we are telling it it's a string, it's textual value. So we can use this and summary, company name, position. For the sake of speed, I'm not going to use all of it. We can delete, we can adjust, we can do whatever we feel like doing. Email address is super important for HeyReach as well. So email address, custom fields if we have those. If not, that's okay. Also, we need comma at the end of every row, and let's do this. And let's do LinkedIn profile, list ID. This is we need something that we need to hard code, and we need to plan up front. So this is the list. Let's do a different list, and let's just for the sake of testing, do this and save, and let's check the list. So it's empty. So we can test module by module by going to run this module only, because we are using dynamic fields. We need to put something here, locate here, LinkedIn profile. This is not important. This is not doing any validation whether or not this LinkedIn profile is valid. You will be using valid email addresses and email LinkedIn profile URLs, because you're gonna feed that into Smartlead when uploading leads. So this is just for test and see. Yep, status code 200. This is okay. Let's check if this person appeared. Yes, this is it. This is working properly. So in order to test, I highly suggest and recommend that you create one test campaign with some, again, dummy information, dummy leads, but just to test the whole flow. Put some dummy leads inside Smartlead, create a sequence campaign, as you will, and let this scenario run and see if you're getting those leads in a list inside HeyReach. What is important is for us to save this all the time and make Will warn us if we want to reload or leave this scenario configuration before saving, and this should be also immediately as data arrives checked into like activated, and also we can give it a meaningful name, bounced leads from to HeyReach, because if we have more scenarios running, it can get a little bit confusing. Save changes, and it's on. This is perfect, so we can see the history of runs later, and even here, those are this test runs that we did, tested everything else. So if you want to troubleshoot, bug fix, whatever, you can check that here, and this one is active. So basically, this is everything about creating this kind of thing, and this is the end state that we've created. So first event happened, then we sent info to Make via webhook. It wasn't enough, so we asked Smartlead for more information. We received those, and we then pushed that info to HeyReach via HTTP request module and an API, and basically that's it. Now let's talk about scenario number 2, the opposite scenario where we have a campaign inside HeyReach, and for whatever reason we want to combine it with email outreach for, I don't know, many different reasons why we want to do that. So let's check how to do that one. Obviously we're starting with HeyReach, and we need to make this connection to pass some information from HeyReach to Make as the intermediary platform, and then cherry pick information required for Smartlead. So that way we are going to establish this integration. So inside HeyReach we can create a campaign and also a webhook. A webhook, we have this section here where we have one which is disabled, and if you haven't created any webhooks, this list will be empty. So let's analyze what we can have here. So webhook name, URL like before, campaign, all campaigns or one campaign, and event type, what we want to do. For the sake of testing, I'm gonna use, whenever I view a profile, I'll send an email. Of course, there's no much practical usage of this scenario, but you can be creative, connection request sent, or whenever they accept connection request and then send some information, whatever you prefer. But let's view profile, and then we need to go to Make. Now let's create a fresh new scenario for this. Again, Make asks us to create, to choose the first module, and we are gonna use a webhook, and that's custom webhook. Create a webhook, and we are going to name it HeyReach webhook for profile views. That's that, and we copy this address. Go back to HeyReach, set this URL, profile views, and we can create a webhook. And that's it. It's active and it's working. Now let's do this and test webhook. So we're sending a test batch, test information, just to help Make actually map out all the structure of the data that is coming in. So we will save this, and we can also do this webhook, and we can repeat the process and test webhook. So everything went well, and this is sample that we received. Again, Joe Doe, some dummy information about what we have on our disposal when it comes to data structure, and we can add another module that is going to be Smartlead. Now we need to find a module that allows us to create a lead inside a campaign, and let's check the modules. But it seems we don't have this module. So if we don't have this module, we can use this, the most generic one, make an API call. So Make warned us that we need to set this module up, and we need to connect it with another module. Here we go. And this is my Smartlead API connection. I have this connection from before, because this connection with Smartlead is for the whole Make account. So I can add, again, name it and put in the API key. If we go to settings again, and this is the API key, copy, paste if we want to start from scratch. But in this case, we don't want to do that. We are going to use this connection. Now we need to consult Smartlead's API documentation, and also to analyze, do we have everything we need, all the information that Smartlead requires. So we have first name, last name, we have email address and profile URL. This is super important. Perfect. So everything that seems like everything is there, so we don't have to create another API call like we did with Smartlead when we were sending information from Smartlead to HeyReach. So let's do this. So go back to this documentation and let's find the API call for adding a lead to a campaign. So under lead management, okay, add leads to a campaign by ID, meaning campaign ID. So if we go here, let's see what the documentation says. So we need campaign ID to specify to which campaign we want to add the lead. Let's go back and see our campaigns, and these leads will bounce. Let's check what we have here. Lead list. I have some dummy leads here. So yep, let's test this. So we need this ID because we need to specify, because we want to add leads to this campaign specifically. So let's check the documentation. It's a post method, and this is the URL. So let's configure it, URL. But we have one small explanation here, and we need to remove everything and just leave it here. This curly brackets just let us know that we need to add some dynamic value like ID of the campaign method. We saw that it has to be post based on the documentation, and we need to specify all these things when it comes to headers like configuration, API key. This is already covered, I believe. So yeah, it says you don't have to add authorization headers. We already did that for you. So there's no point in me simulating that this maybe is needed, but it's not. But so we should be okay with these headers: content type and application JSON, body, what we want to send to the API. So for that, it's always useful to check this example of lead list on leads. So we're going to copy paste, but we will need to do some interventions because the documentation sometimes is not precise. It has sometimes some typos or errors. And if we leave it as this, first of all, there will be some errors because this is not valid JSON. These are just comments in the code. So we need to delete everything, all the explanations with those slashes or double slashes, whichever they are. So these are configuration, like when we're uploading leads into Smartlead, we were asked, we have those toggle switches to, should Smartlead ignore global block list or other campaigns, etc., etc. So just as a proof that sometimes you're doing everything right, but documentation is not right, if we save this, and let me just do one more intervention, another comment. Okay, and let's run this module. We have an error. The error in this case, I already solved it because it was trial and error. Let me just remove this. There are double quotation marks missing from here. Okay, and we are going to use some other dummy information because for whatever reason it's not working for this set of information. So let me just quickly populate this now and let's test it. Nope, something is off. Okay, long story short, what we were missing, double quotation marks around lead list. I've changed some things and we cannot have number here but string, and also changed some information here, nothing too special, and we need commas. So this is an example where the documentation is not correct. We need commas at the end of every row and quotation marks because even though this is a number, theoretically it's not being parsed properly. We have these commas here, which is fine, and we need to remove these comments. So that was the reason. And if we go back and just to check if everything is fine, we had 4, now we have 5, and here we are. We've added through the API, through make, this new lead. Now these values are now hard-coded. This is not useful for us because we want to pass this dynamic fields. So let's see what we need to do in order to, let me just move this away. Dynamic fields like first name, we need to pay attention. This section is about sender. We need lead, first name, again, quotation marks before and after, last name. I've replaced all these fields and paid attention that I have double quotation marks before and after these fields, and everything will be pulled dynamically for every single person. Instead of these fields, there will be exact value. That way, values will not be hard-coded, and we can play with these true and false values, however we want to, for Smartlead to parse these leads. So I can save this, and it should work, and also run this module only. So because I'm asked now to fill out this form, because in the previous case I had hard-coded values, now it will be dynamic. So tells me, okay, give me some values I can work with. So let's do this profile URL and let's test it out. Perfect, status code 200. Let's go back to our campaign and see what is happening. Okay, here it is. Another lead has been created. So we'll go back to make and save. Super important. Say immediately. So as soon as something comes in, some data comes in, the scenario should be triggered and activated, and HeyReach viewed profiles to Smartlead or something like that, and then we can save and go back. It's active. We'll see history, all the executions, and that's basically it. So we've managed to create 2 scenarios where we have information sent automatically on a certain event from Smartlead to HeyReach, and from, in the second scenario, from HeyReach to Smartlead. So you can play around with these scenarios, event types, and hopefully this was useful to you, and I hope that you'll be able to follow all the steps and recreate these scenarios and create even better scenarios for your campaigns.